welcome to the studio! We have some exciting news. We just hit 1,000 subscribers! Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. I'm so excited. Today I was promoting on Instagram that you could ask questions, and we're just going to do a quick Q&A about myself as an artist, how I got started, and anything else you guys wanted to know. So let's get into it. Okay, first question. What thoughts go through your brain while painting? A bit of everything, honestly. When I'm painting, I'm normally listening to YouTube videos, audiobooks, music, at least something. I'm definitely one of those people who I need to have something going on in the background. The only time I sort of leave it very quiet is when I'm reading, so that way I'm not distracted. But when I'm painting, I sort of let my mind wander a little bit. I try and focus on what I'm trying to do while I'm painting, but in my brain I'm going here, there and everywhere. So sometimes it's a murder mystery podcast, sometimes it's a YouTube video on how to edit, sometimes I'm just watching people paint their nails. Like, it's a little bit of everything, and I kind of enjoy that variety, because when you're focused on one project over a long period of time, if you try and just stay in the one lane, sometimes it's much easier to get mentally tired. And when I'm physically doing things with my hands and making all those tiny little mental notes of, oh, move this here, pick up this color, go a bit warmer, go a bit cooler, I want to keep the rest of my brain interested. Do you have a constant source of inspiration, or are you always finding new things to inspire? Sort of a combination of both, for sure. I'm definitely an inspiration hoarder, in that I'm always looking on Instagram, I'm always saving images to different folders. I've got folders for portraits and landscapes and things that I'm like, oh, this is a cool idea for, a reference image one day or something like that. I also save images on my computer into inspiration folders. I also print things off and put them into my work journal. I've got a blue journal where I put sort of all my regular here, there and everywhere inspirations, and then I've got the ones that I've had with me since I was young. I've got my favourite paintings in the NGV. I've got Anguish and Fortune, they're my two favourites. Then I've got sort of historical artwork that I'm always inspired by. My artwork particularly does have a very Baroque, realist, European bend to it, so there's all those sort of influences coming through. Yeah, and my main thing is just always don't paint it unless you're interested in it. Sometimes I break that rule with sketches or things like Oiltober, where I'm painting things out of the blue, but for the big ones, you really need to be engaged with the subject and engaged with what you want to do, and all your inspiration needs to come together perfectly if you want to sustain the project for the length of the painting. Because some of my big paintings take up to 2 months to do, I need to be really, really invested. Favourite artworks that aren't in oil or figurative? Oh, that's a harder one. Whenever I said aren't oil, I was immediately going to Rape of the Sabine Women, the marble sculpture in Florence. It was 3 figures in one chunk of marble, which was just absolutely insane, and the way the bodies twist and have gravity is great, but that one's figurative. Things that aren't figurative, off the top of my head. I do really love a lot of still life painters. Michelle Monari's works, I love. They're all along the theme of memento mori, so they've got this death overlay to them. They're birds and taxidermy and skulls and glass cloches, and they're so delicate. They have this wonderful mood to them. Got 2 original artworks that I have bought that are right up there in my favourites. I hope I have these until the day I die. One is a commission. I commissioned a Melbourne artist called Meg Cowell, who's amazing. She does these amazing photographs that are sort of like photographic compositions of various subject matters, but mine is my wedding dress. And you can see that here. And as you can see, it's got this beautiful motion to it, and it is almost figurative, even though it's a dress, and it's got this beautiful volume to it, and it's just such a beautiful way to memorialize my dress. So I've still got the dress in the closet, but I'm not really caring about that. The photo is what I want to keep forever, and I absolutely love it. And the other one is a print from Robert Neely, and this one is one of his oil paintings. Oh, I'm back on oil. I wasn't allowed to do it. All right, I'll have to tell you about that one another time. So we'll stick with the Meg Cow photograph. That one's one of my favorites. Can you explain your approach to color? How you like to use it? For colour, I've always been very much in the start high chroma. You can always calm it down. I love intensity in colour, so I'm a sucker for when they come out with a new tube called Vibrant or Neon or that sort of thing at the shop. I always want to buy it. And with all those bright, vibrant, intense colours, if you lay them down straight from the tube, that's as intense as that colour will ever be. You can't sort of intensify it that much by mixing it with something else. It'll always sort of knock it back a little bit. Regardless of what colour you mix it with, it'll always sort of lose some of that intensity. So in a lot of ways, I paint with the colours as intense as I possibly can to start the painting, and then I gradually calm them down to create those relationships between different areas. So with my figures and things like that, when there's coloured light involved, I start with full ball colour and then gradually introduce the more subtleties of the skin, and that will calm it down naturally. So a lot of the time, if you watch some of my videos with the early underpainting, it will just look crazy because there's just intense colour everywhere. So I highly recommend go have a look at like IO's Agency or After Anguish, and you can just see how they start with just intense blobs of colours everywhere and then gradually all come and knit together as I create all those subtleties of the skin. Yeah, I hope that's helpful. Do you have something you default to painting when you hit an art block or aren't sure what to paint? Absolutely. Skulls and eyes. They're probably my main two. Skulls are just, I've even got one here. They have so many different little forms to them. They play like a face, but at the same time, you can just see from the light coming to hit it here, there's so many subtleties going through all the sections of the skull, and literally every time you move it a millimeter, that's a different painting. So this is my more recent resin skull. I got her when we moved into this house and this studio, which you can see in my studio tour video. But before that, I had an old skull over there. This is my old resin skull. I've probably done 20 to 30 paintings of her, but she had an accident. She fell off the table and landed on her teeth. So now she's all shattered, but I can't bear to get rid of her because she's just still got so much character. And this one is actually a really good cast. It's got all the detail underneath and everything, but I bought it from a stationery shop here in Australia called Typo because it was just like a desk set ornament. So I'm actually really like this one. Who's next? Billboard illustration. Are you planning another class soon like you did a month or so back? I haven't done formal classes, but I did do a demonstration, and I think that's what Bill's talking about. I did 2 demonstrations as part of the Women Painting Women exhibition. At the moment I haven't got anything planned. I'm not a formal teacher. I haven't sort of learnt how to teach. I've just picked up information everywhere in my journey of becoming an artist. I'm definitely a research and knowledge sponge. I like to absorb as much as I can. So I'm not looking to teach yet, but subscribing to this YouTube channel is the best way to see what little bits of information I do bring out in my videos. I try and be as informative as I can, and that's where things like the try and test series where I try out new paints and new art things is quite interesting, and I'll be doing more sort of long form tutorials like the pet portrait tutorial I did recently. So yeah, stay subscribed because I want to do more and more, and it helps my confidence a lot to be able to film myself for you guys and talk about what I'm doing, so that hopefully one day I could teach in person or maybe on one of the online platforms where I can be completely confident in what I'm saying. So even sitting on camera like this today is still fairly new to me. I haven't been on camera for a lot of videos, so I'm only just getting used to it. But thank you. How did you make a living wage with art a reality? Congrats, by the way, on 1K. Thank you, Ariane. A living wage with art, that's a tricky one. I've only just started May this year going full-time again as an artist. And I say again because one other time I've tried to be full-time, where my partner and I were living in regional Victoria because we were living in the country. A lot of our expenses were lower, our rent was lower, things like that. I did it for a year with some mild success. I still had a side job doing graphic design and doing commissions. And art's one of those things, I think you've always got your finger in a couple of different pies. You can't sort of rely on just selling original artworks as your only form of income, unless you're like right at the top of the pile. One of those 1% artists who earns like thousands and thousands of dollars for every artwork and sells it out before they finish it. So my journey, I've always been a worker. The second I was of legal age, I went out and got a job, which I was very lucky to get. And because I was tall for my age, I think that helped my employers want to hire me, because I looked at when I was about 18 years old when I was about 15. So I've always been a bit of a always work mentality. I've also been a good saver. So learning to budget and learning to squirrel away money in savings has really helped me. And this month, my husband and I have decided I'm going to try going full-time again, simply because during everything that happened last year in COVID, I was working a lot more hours than I usually would. And the side effect of that was I wasn't painting. I was barely painting. The most painting I did was Aya's agency and Oiltober. And after Oiltober, I didn't paint very much at all until we moved into this house in February. So that was months without painting, simply because I was burnt out on work. Because I worked in an art shop and we were online only, we were allowed to keep going through the lockdown, and it just got too much a little bit. And sometimes you've got to step back and ask yourself, how are different things in your life affecting your mental health and what might help? And I'll be honest, is kind of terrifying being full-time as an artist at the moment. I'm working off my savings that I've squirreled away, and I'm just gonna see how it goes. I think I've actually heard from a fair few artists, if you can even give yourself periods of time, like 3 months here or 6 months there, where you plan to work full-time as an artist, squirrel away money, save, and then commit yourself, you can achieve so much. And knowing it's not forever is sometimes a good way to feel a bit safer. For now, I'm trying to be a full-time artist and I'm giving it a good go. And I've planned so I can give it a good go for 6 months at least. And then we'll see where we're at again. So don't be scared to plan, and don't be scared to give yourself permission to try, because that can be a very liberating experience. It can also be terrifying, but liberating. So that's where I am at the moment, and I hope that's helpful. Another question, just wanted to say you're amazing. Oh, thank you, Wincy. You're so lovely. Next one, the Gridler. What is your favorite name of a color of paint? Ooh. I've got my favorite colors, but then favorite name. I really like Sapphire. Sapphire is made by Art Spectrum. It's one of the colors I use all the time, and I'm just like, I know I'm not painting with actual sapphires, but it just gives you that feeling of, ooh, this is rich and a bit bougie. Or Hooker's Green, that's the one that makes my husband always giggle. Hooker's Green is great. Last couple. What do you carry with you every day? Ooh. This is a hard thing because I'm a lady, and that means most of my clothes don't have pockets. But in terms of carry with me every day, definitely sort of wallet with business cards, art business cards. I just got some new ones, and I like to I get my cards done with all different paintings on them. So that's always a good one. I recommend, as much as it's old school, carry business cards and make sure they've got some of your work on it so you can immediately show people, this is what I do, this is my art, this is what I love. Keys, phone. Phone, same thing. Instagram is my portfolio. If someone immediately sort of goes, oh, you're a painter, what do you do? I just whip out the phone, show them Instagram and go, this is what I do. I do all these things. And that can be, it's not overly pushy. I think trying to describe to people what you do when you work in a visual medium, just show them. It's not pushy, it's not egotistical. just show people visually what you do, because it's your visuals speak volumes. So yeah, that's an easy one. What lessons from art have you been able to apply in your other everyday life? Ooh, that's a tricky one. I think things like don't be scared to use more paint. Like when you're doing something, like when you're cooking or when you're exercising or things like that, don't half-ass it. Just go for it. Even if it's scary, even if it uses a bit more resources, just think of that end goal and go for it. I think that's something with painting a lot of people do, is when you're starting, you're very scared to use your materials, you're tentative and you only use a little bit. I know when I first painted, I used like this much paint and like this much terps to water it down, which was awful. All those paintings are awful. But it's a good little motto to just if you're here, you're doing the thing, just go for it. Really go for it with all that you've got, and then like don't hurt yourself. But other than that, I think you'll hit those targets a lot harder if you just do it without fear. What would be a dream location to work in? Oh, when I was a kid, when I was a uni student, I did flirt with the idea of doing one of those atelier courses in Italy and things like that, but my lifestyle and my social situation and monetarily wise, I could never do it. But that's just one of those dreams. I'm like, me in another universe, go to Italy and learn from an atelier program, realist painting. That'd be great. I think at the moment my thing is just if my husband and I could find somewhere where we could settle for more than 1 year, a house, a place where we can just splat. But again, our lifestyle at the moment, most of the time we're moving with his job, so we'll leave the dream category of that until we're allowed to dream about that kind of stuff. But you know, a bigger studio, a larger studio where I can not hit the ceiling. This one's pretty good. My last studio I hit the ceiling with the easel. This one I don't as much, which is great. But if I wanted a bigger easel, silly things I don't need but would be cool, then I could work a lot bigger. Last question. Do you pay your models for each reference? Briefly, yes. I get my reference photos in a number of different ways. I originally just used friends and family and things like that as my models, and that went for quite a few years until sort of 2019. So my major solo exhibition in 2018, they were all friends and family as my models. And I sort of bought them lunch and things like that, but I wouldn't really consider that paying my models nowadays. Nowadays, I get my model references from online sources where I pay for the references and the models have been paid for their model session from those companies. And then I also hire individual photographers and make sure to pay the model and the photographer for their time. And then I also take my own references. Probably the only people I haven't paid are, again, when I'm doing something individually, like I painted my friend Carl KM, who's a fellow artist, and he painted me. So that was a bit of an exchange situation where we both ended up with an artwork, which was great, and things like that. But I think now that I'm a little bit older and I'm not a student anymore, I place a lot more pressure on myself to make sure everyone benefits from the process. So my models get paid, my references have a piece of paper that says that yes, I had consent to use them and things like that. A lot of the art competitions in Australia make sure that you have a piece of paper signed off by the model saying yes, I consent to my image being used. So it's something that's coming up more and more, especially with technology and the way that images spread, that the more you can cover your bases, the better. There's nothing worse than if you've done a painting, you've poured all your hours and time into it, and you've used a random image off Google, someone could come back to you and say you're not allowed to use that image, and then your painting's worthless. Your painting's worthless. You can't show it, you can't sell it, you can't anything, and that would just be absolutely horrifying. So I refuse to put myself in that situation nowadays. Go out and take your own reference. So when I was a kid, I didn't have a digital camera, and I when we went to the zoo, took all these photos on an analog camera and asked my mum to develop them, so I had all these awful photos of animals at the zoo behind fences so that I could draw from them. So if you take your own references, you have full control. Of course, you do need consent from your model if it's a person, but things like photos of animals, photos of landscapes, photos of clouds. I've been taking photos of clouds almost every day in my studio and posting them on my Instagram stories, so now I have this bank of cloud photos that I can use anytime I want. So anything like that, jump in, grab it, and build yourself your own reference library that you know you're allowed to use and you know you own the copyright on. And I think that's all your questions. Thank you so much. This has been super lovely, a little Q&A, and you've forced me to think about a few things a bit obscurely. Thank you again for everyone who's subscribed. If you haven't subscribed, hit the bell now and we'll be able to notify you every time that I post. I'm now doing live streams weekly, which is very exciting. I've done 2 test live streams last week and I'm going to be doing a changing roster. So check out my About page on YouTube for that schedule. But I'm very excited to do more painting where we can just chat and ask questions like this just normally. I had a lot of people asking me rather obscure random art questions while I was painting, and it got me invigorated and excited and a little bit of adrenaline while I was painting, and that was absolutely awesome. So I look forward to seeing you all on the live streams, and I'll see you later. But thank you for joining me in the studio. And don't forget to wash your brushes. See ya.